On today's episode of the Locked On Texans Podcast, will changing offensive coordinators help or hurt CJ Stroud in year 3? That's the talk of the town. So why not talk here on the Locked On Texans Podcast?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Better Red Nation, we're going into the weekend having some fun. Thank you for stopping by. We are your Texans Credential Media members and your Texans football analysts. I'm John Hickman. That's Brian Big Sars Badfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Team, family, your team every day. Today's show, we're looking at Danielle Hunter getting into the Pro Bowl. We also kind of need to talk about why Kamari Lassiter ain't getting no love around the NFL. I'm sick of it, Sarge, and I know you are too. The next steps for Demeco Ryans as a coach. What would we want to see from Demeco to elevate, to be the best version of himself as a head coach? I think that's an interesting conversation. We'll open up today's show looking at whether or not it is smart for the Houston Texans to bring in an offensive coordinator for CJ Stroud. Would it help him or hurt him going into year 3? Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Big Sarge.
John.
Before I hand it over to you, let me just say this. I know the talk of the town, the most popular conversation right now is fire Bobby Slowik. And I'll tell you this, I can't wait to hear your thoughts, but don't bring me another first-time inexperienced play caller. Don't do that. Don't do it. Sarge, take it away.
Wait, John, hold on. Hey, do people still go like this? They don't do this no more, huh?
It depends.
Am I old for doing that?
No, because sometimes I may catch myself doing it.
Greetings and salutations, Mr. Hickman. Listen, let me tell you something. Throughout this entire week, John, you and I have been talking about Bobby Slowik. Should we keep him? Should we fire him? Should we keep him? Should we fire him? And I told you I can make a case for both. I can make a case to let him go. I can make a case to keep him. And today I'm going to make a case on keeping him, John. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to use, because listen, hey, I read the YouTube comments as well.
Sarge is keeping Bobby Slowik.
And
you know what? Hell did just freeze over a couple of days ago here in Houston.
Right, I seen sledding, I seen skiing. People were skiing down the gallery of parking garage. But John, listen, let me tell you something. I read the YouTube comments. I know everybody's saying fire Bobby, and they're saying Sarge don't know what he's talking about. Why he keep trying to make a case for Bobby Slowik? Well, one of the reasons why I say that you can keep Bobby Slowik. If Demeco's going to keep him, I wouldn't be surprised by that. If Demeco's going to let him go, I wouldn't be surprised by that. But by keeping him, you give CJ another year of being in the same system. You give CJ another year of getting comfortable in that system. And now in year 3, you give him more responsibility. You give him more responsibility as far as the offense is concerned. Now, if Bobby is to stay, if you're going to keep Bobby Slowik, what you have to make clear to Bobby is CJ is the franchise quarterback. You're not the franchise offensive coordinator.
You're not Ben Johnson
at all, period. You're not Sean McVay. You know what I'm saying? You're not Kevin O'Connell, who was awarded Pro Football Writers Association Coach of the Year for the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. You're not any of those, Bobby. You're a third-year offensive coordinator. And that's what I keep going back to, John, is saying in the first 2 years of Bobby Slowik, we seen good Bobby. The second year, we seen bad Bobby. Let's see what he's going to be this year. Because, John, I don't start evaluating quarterbacks till after year 3. After year 3, I start evaluating quarterbacks, which is the same thing I said to CJ Stroud. Year 1, you blew the NFL away. Year 2, you went through your peaks and valleys. What does year 3 look like for CJ Stroud?
I 100% agree.
That's the exact same thing that you got to look at when it comes to Bobby Slowik. What is year 3 going to look like for Bobby Slowik? And everybody, John, I have a saying, stop looking at the selfie and look at the panoramic view. Everybody's looking at the selfie, but the panoramic view says that Bobby Slowik, year one, helped lead a Houston Texans offense to the divisional round, got there, and only had one wide receiver. Year two, Bobby Slowik helped lead Houston Texans offense to the divisional round of the playoffs, second year in a row, and only had one wide receiver. So what is Bobby going to look like if we can see him with his full complement of players? If we could just see him with the full complement of players for the entire year, what is that going to look like? If year three means that they have everybody and they lose in the divisional round again, now you start to say, hey, Bobby, we have to go a different way. But you have a coach who's never been an offensive coordinator. In his first 2 years, he's still learning. John, anybody that goes to a new job, no matter how much training you have, if you go to a new job with a new position, you gotta have that probationary period. And so in those first 2 years under Bobby Slowik, now listen, and don't get me wrong, there's been some times where you can question Bobby and his play calling. Bobby has to take the onus of not being good in the second half as far as play calling and making the adjustments. If they're going to give him another opportunity, you have to say, Bobby, listen, we're not playing that this year. Listen, let me tell you something. I'm all for firing Bobby mid-season if he can't get it together in the first 8 games. The Houston Texans go 5-3, but we still see the inefficiencies in the second half. I'm saying, hey, it's time to let Bobby go. Let somebody else call the plays.
You know, hell froze over on Tuesday. You had people slaying down the parks and hoeing down this and that. But I would 100% agree, and I think that's a shock for a lot of people because we were extremely critical of Bobby Slowik this year. But the facts remain. When I look at the offense altogether, and before we talk about firing an offensive coordinator in CJ Stroud's second year going into his third year, let's look at some of the factors that played a major role into the Texans' problem. Sarge, you said this beautifully, and I love what you said. Stop looking at the self, look at the panoramic view. Look at everything. Chris Stroud coached a bad offensive line that was exploited in week 2, and the rest of the league used that blueprint to expose the Texans' offensive line. This led to 52 sacks on the year, second in the league around the NFL, 14 more than CJ Stroud's rookie year when he had George Fant out there. I think Houston missed George Fant, but you look at the amount of times CJ Stroud was sacked, hit back there, right? That plays a factor into whether or not the plays can develop. You also look at the fact that you have one of the most expensive offensive lines in football that can't pick up blitzes or stunts, and it doesn't do a good job consistently run blocking. 31st in rushing success rate. That's not good. Then, to your point, once again, the offense loses Stephon Diggs in week 8. Tank Dell misses 5 games, and then they lose him against Kansas City. Nico Collins misses 5 games with an injury as well. So you're looking at the offense operating without full strength for a good part of the year.
Mixon missed 3 games.
Mixon missed 3 games. And by the way, when all of those, with the 5-headed monster, Nico, Stephon, Tank, Joe Mixon, and I'll throw Dalton Schultz in there. When they played on the field all at the same time, they were 2-0.
And John, wait, and also remember, CJ dealt with the shoulder injury after that he sustained in the New York Jets game.
Yeah, and I look at this like this, man. Chip Kelly, bring us Chip Kelly. Let's be real for a moment.
Yeah.
If I'm Chip Kelly, I just helped coach Ohio State to a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
This program is on a high. The only way I'm leaving Ohio State where I'm comfortable, I'm getting paid well. I'm an offensive coordinator. And again, if we repeat or I get another one under my belt, I'm a legend here in Ohio State. The only way I'm leaving college is for a head coaching job. That ain't happening here in Houston.
Not in
I'm
Houston.
going to tell you another guy that I like. I like him a lot. We can move on. Nick Caley over with the Rams, right? Spent some time with Sean McVay and Josh McDaniels. However, you look around the league, there's new head coaches everywhere.
Yeah.
Who's to say he wants to come to Houston over maybe New York or somewhere else where they just got a new head coach, right? And also, again, he has not been an offensive coordinator in the NFL. So I think we have to be fair about the situation. To your point, I believe this wholeheartedly as well. You give your quarterback 3 years. What you do not want to do is mess up that foundation unless your offensive coordinator was just completely god-awful and bad. And in this case, I saw improvement from Bobby Slowik to close out the year. Where I never saw improvement consistently for 4 quarters, your offensive line not giving your quarterback or your running back the time they need to be successful. So as much as I would like to say, hey, fire Bobby, I just don't think it's smart.
Wait, John, hold on.
I don't think it's smart.
I can't just let you get that off and let it slide, John. I just can't let it slide. Hey, that offensive line did improve when Titus moved to left guard.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Let's talk about that when we come back. So we got more Locked On Texans on the opposite side, the conversation on whether or not Houston should move on from the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowik. And this is the perfect time to give you that opportunity to talk about whether or not I was wrong for saying trade Titus Howard and Laremy Tunsil. So we got more Locked On Texans. It's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. We ain't got a lot left, y'all. That's where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn all of your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards, rushing touchdowns, passing attempts, sacks, you name it, they got it. You can do all of that for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your winnings and payout, or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. With over 10 million members and billions of winnings, it's clear Prize Picks is the platform of the people. You don't want to miss out, and you don't have to right now. Here's a special offer for our Locked On Texans and Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. Sarge, we're back talking Texans. We're back talking Titus. Before we do that, what I do want to say is when you have a coach like Chris Trouser that was mulling over retirement before the season allegedly, and he spends an entire year having to get your players like a Kenyon Green to rebound, Jared Patterson and Juice Scruggs going into year 2, and everything else that came with the ups and downs and ebbs and flows of this offensive line, that is a recipe of disaster, and it showed. Now, to the Titus Howard talk. Fans and listeners have been waiting to hear you say this talk about this all week. I'm going to mute my mic, and I'm going to shut up because now the floor is completely yours. Do you believe the offensive line played better in the final weeks of the season?
I do, John. I honestly and I truly believe that over the final weeks, you've seen an improvement in CJ Stroud. And even in the 2 playoff games against the Los Angeles Chargers and against the Kansas City Chiefs, you've seen that line, even though they still had some issues. And I can say this, John. Unmute your mic for 1 second. I have a question to ask you, right? From a line perspective, right? Really quick though, from a line perspective, John, how difficult is it to move from tackle to guard?
Extremely difficult. There's no way around it. Extremely difficult and challenging, to say the least.
And so in order for Titus Howard to be able to do that, like Titus can play every position up and down that line. I think that what people don't give Titus enough credit for is his versatility and his ability to be able to do that, to play every position on that line. And I don't understand how some people thought that he was going to move automatically from right tackle, to left guard, and then all of a sudden just become one of the best left guards in the game. But what he did do, and what I did like, is he has that chemistry with Laremy Tunsil on and off the field. And so, yes, Titus missed some assignments when he was trying to pull. Yes, Titus may have given up, may have had some difficulty picking up stunts. But what we seen over time when Titus moved to that left guard position, we started to see CJ get a lot more comfortable in the pocket. And look, I know that if you go back and you look at the 8 sacks that happened in Kansas City, like 3 of those came from Dalton Schultz, but but the offensive line will be blamed. Shaq Mason didn't have a good day. They set up Blake Fisher having to go up against Chris Jones. And Titus and Laramie didn't have a bad game. They could have had a better game, but I see the improvement over the last when Titus moved to left guard. I seen the improvement, and I seen CJ start to get more comfortable because he trusted those guys, knowing that they're going to do what they're able to do. One of the biggest mistakes, John, and this goes back to our Bobby Slowik conversation. I think that Chris Strausser, Bobby Slowik, and Demeco Ryans did CJ Stroud a disservice by starting Shaq Mason in the divisional in a divisional game against Kansas City.
I'm glad you said that. Because that kind of leads me right to my conversation of what's the next steps for Demeco Ryans. Listen, I really think the world of Demeco Ryans as a coach, as a development coach, as a leader of men, as every positive attribute you can give a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think what has hurt and held this team back from a coaching standpoint and from a front office standpoint is being, like I said over and over again, sometimes they have just been too loyal to some of their guys.
Yes.
And in the playoff game, I think the news that had everybody scratching their head, Shaq Mason would be back in the lineup.
Yeah, for sure.
Didn't understand it at all. Throughout the year, just understanding, I know we brought in Jeff Okudah, but he's not going to cut it. We can't trust him out on the field. And when we do put him out there, what's the realism of can he make a play for us or not? How many times has Jeff Okudah made a play this year when he was able to actually play football?
Yeah,
I think that's a conversation that needed to be had. Just overall, even the wide receiver unit when Stephon went down in week 8, just maybe finding out whether or not they can upgrade or give some guys that fit what this offense is doing a little bit more than the John mentioned and Xavier Hutchinson, right? So for me, I would say the next step I want to see from Demeco Ryans is just not getting away from being loyal and understanding that these football decisions need to be had and need to be made, and he needs to be able to make these quicker, earlier in the time frame when they need to be made in order to make sure this roster has all of the better tools that they need to be able to perform.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with you, John. Going back to the Shaq Mason point, I think that you put Juice Scruggs in there. You're young guy, and you say, "Hey, look, man, you're gonna get baptized by fire, and I'm gonna put you next to this rookie, and I'm gonna put you next to your second-year player, somebody you're used to, but I'm gonna put you right next here." So this right side of the line, hey, look, even if we lose, we're looking to see, hey, man, maybe we'll have something going into next year. Maybe if we can get Titus totally bought into playing left guard starting at the beginning of the season, okay, we got something. If we can get Juice Scruggs to get bought in to playing right guard, we got something. I just didn't like that. And John, you hit the nail on the head when you said the loyalty part. Now you got to look at it like this, John. Demeco,
players coach.
Yeah, and Demeco comes from a small town where loyalty is big, Bessemer, Alabama. Family over everything, right? Then he goes to Alabama, that program, family over everything. And he comes to the Texans, he goes to the Eagles, and then he goes to his first coaching. He starts coaching in San Francisco, family, John. And so he develops these relationships. He developed that relationship with Bobby. I mean, John, you just think about it. You spend time with somebody for a long time, man, you become loyal to them. As long as they have if they have the loyalty to you, which Bobby does, then you have the loyalty to them. And so, John, I agree. When we look at that, some of the things that he did this year, some of the questionable calls he did, I'm going to be honest with you, John. So some of the things sometimes I felt like, hey, man,
are you in my head?
Trust Matt on this one. Trust Matt Burke on this one. Trust Matt on this one. Hey, you know what? You see what's going on? Hey, your players aren't going to be able to adjust to this 4th and 10. Call a timeout. I know you're trying to save them.
Can I also add to that in terms of there was too many times this year, where I felt like the game plan was to just get out of the game instead of go and win it, right? And Houston got caught at times where we saw Kaimi Fairbairn trot out on the field too often, at times where I felt like man, maybe they didn't pick up that third, but they just had a good drive. Let's see if you can go out there and score the touchdown and not settle for the 3. So
Yeah.
I think from an offensive standpoint, even though he's a defensive guy, that's between him and Bobby. Going into next year, just being more aggressive, especially when you have the guys available to be aggressive with.
Yeah, and you look at John. You look at a coach like Dan Campbell in Detroit. You look at a coach like a Dan Quinn in Washington. Like those are the type of coaches be like, yo, we're gonna go for these. We're gonna do this. This is what we're gonna do. I trust. That's the one thing that you have to you want going into next season. Not so much loyalty to guys, just trust. Trust and trust and believe that they're going to get whatever they need to get done. And so I would like to see that Demeco take that next step. But John, it all goes back to what we have been talking about. CJ going into his 3rd year. If Bobby is back, Bobby going into his 3rd year. Demeco is going into his 3rd year as well.
Yeah. Year 3 can be major for the Houston Texans. And what I think everybody should be rejoicing on is, hey, we got a quarterback. This ain't one of those situations where you may need to go get a bridge quarterback and you may overspend or overpay for a quarterback. No, you got a quarterback still on the rookie deal, can give you some flexibility. Houston is now a popular spot that people may want to come and play for this team. So the grace of everything wasn't perfect in year 2. The criticisms are extremely fair because year 3, I want to see, like we talked about with CJ Stroud, get that ball out quickly, take what's underneath. But year 3 is all about leaving a lot of those bad tendencies behind, bad habits behind.
And John, the one thing that I want to say too, because I've seen a lot of this on social media, and a lot is from some of these guys who talk Houston Texans football. When you go and you judge what Demeco Ryans did this year, if the bottom is the divisional round, then what is the ceiling? Right? If the floor is the divisional round, then what is the ceiling? He's got to the divisional round 2 years in a row while he's still trying to figure out this NFL thing. He's trying to figure out this NFL coaching thing. And so you just give him some time, you give him some time, give him some opportunities, because he took the blame on the lack of execution, against Kansas City as well. So, just give him some time. After year 3, year 4, maybe, if it's still not working, if they can't get over the hump in the divisional round, then you start looking to move on a little bit and saying that, hey, maybe this isn't, maybe we need to go in a different direction. But John, with the way that with what he had to deal with, we talk about this all the time, right? And I know that somebody's been like, oh my God, here goes Sarge. Well, here goes Sarge. African-American coaches who are given opportunities in the NFL always get the bottom of the barrel. They get the bottom of the bottom. Every time you look around and you look at an NFL head, African-American NFL head coaching opportunity, they're always getting the bottom to rebuild. A lot of people don't want to say this. The Texans were the bottom. The Texans were the bottom. The last 3 years before Demeco, they were the bottom. And you had them being talked about as a toxic franchise, a dysfunctional franchise. Then you had everything that was going on coaching. Now all of a sudden they were labeled, what they were labeled. So what Demeco has been able to do in the last 2 years, last 2 seasons here, is he's built a winning culture. So you give him that division, you give him the grace of the divisional round, and look, I put it like this: if he brings Bobby back, he knows what he's doing.
We got more Locked On Texans on the way. Danielle Hunter, officially a Pro Bowler. And again, I got some things to say about Kamari Lassiter not being a part of this Defensive Rookie of the Year. It's making me mad, guys. The one thing I don't want to do is make you guys mad by not hooking y'all up with some great opportunities to get some great seats, and you can do that with Game Time. We all love going to live events, whether you want to go check out the Rockets, whether you want to go check out some music, live music, theater, or a comedy event. What we all want to do and need to do is get out the house sometimes and enjoy ourselves, and Game Time makes that extremely easy. Now they have the new feature, Game Time Picks. This filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account using you create an account, and then use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
Also, for all of my small business owners out there, 2025, it's time to grow your small business. And in order to do that, you gotta have some great hires. Let's be real about it. If you don't have good hires, you won't get good business. That's where LinkedIn comes in with the strongest hiring data available. LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. I've used LinkedIn Jobs myself, and I can tell you it is a game changer when it comes to hiring the right fit. So hire smarter this year, not harder this year, but hire smarter this year with LinkedIn and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Locked On Texans Podcast, all the viewers and listeners out there. Big Sarge salute. John, before we start talking about Cyborg, and that is Danielle Hunter being a replacement for Max Crosby, Las Vegas Raiders edge rusher, who is injured. Danielle Hunter will take his place in the Pro Bowl because he was named an alternate. Before we get to that, John, I think that you got something you need.
Kamari Lassiter. Yeah, I got something.
Go ahead.
Put your mic on mute. I'm sorry. So when we look at the guys that were nominated for the Defensive Rookie of the Year, you got Eagles cornerbacks Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, Chop Robinson, Miami edge rusher, Brandon Fisk, LA Rams, who, he balled out this year, and Jared Verse, LA
Who's
Rams.
going to win it?
He's going to win it. The only other competition I think would probably be Mitchell or Fisk. Brandon Fisk is one of those dogs. Now, let me say this. When you got a rookie cornerback that allowed the lowest completion percentage among cornerbacks who had at least 300 coverage snaps according to Next Gen, 45%, 3 interceptions, 42 tackles, I think nearly 10, if not 10, around 10 pass deflections, was also featured on a top 5 defense and was a reason why this Houston Texans defense was a top 5 defense in the NFL. I don't understand where the voters' minds are when it comes to leaving off Kamari Lassiter. I don't. I think this is one of those situations where he's not flashy enough for you. He's not a media darling. He's not, and for us here in Houston he is, but maybe he's not media likable. But throw all those out. Throw that out. Just watch the tape. Watch the film. And if you want to, go back to the last 2 times we're going to see Kamari Lassiter play football for some time. How many attempts did Patrick Mahomes have against him a couple days ago?
0?
Mostly done type 0, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. And then against the Chargers, didn't he go in and lock – not a good receiver, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. But didn't he go ahead and lock Quentin Johnson up?
And told Justin Herbert, hey, give me that.
And took it away from him, right? Okay. Well, we saw the Houston Texans get how many interceptions against the Detroit Lions?
5.
Kamari Lassiter was on that defense.
For sure.
So I just want to say this, man.
And you get a ringing endorsement from All-Pro Derek Stingley.
By the way.
Yeah.
And he knows football. He knows ball. I just want to say this. The young man is like that for real. Yeah. Coming out of Georgia, there's one game tape that I put on that made me say, oh, yeah, this is somebody that I would like to see for 2 teams. Here in Houston, up in New England, let me pass, guys. Yeah. But it was against Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette was a talk of the town coming out of last year's draft. I put that tape on. I saw his technique, how he played, and how physical he plays to throw receivers off his route. I knew then he was going to be like that. Came to Houston, and guess what he was?
Like that.
like Future, Kendrick Lamar. He was like that. So I don't get it. I disagree with it. He should absolutely be a part of the Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. And I also think if he was a part of it, he would be no lower than second. Jared Verse was that nice, and he was like their main guy. But it's a slap in the face, I think, so to Kamari Lassiter, who really deserves that recognition.
John, I have this hat on, so I'm gonna stay sensible while I talk about Danielle Hunter being an alternate and being selected as an alternate for the Pro Bowl. He's going to, like we said earlier, he's going to join Nico Collins. He's going to join Joe Mixon. He's going to join Larry Tunsil, his teammates. He was placed in there because Max Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders is injured, and so Danielle Hunter is listen, he is well deserved. It's well deserved that he is the first alternate to be, there. Some would say that he should have been in the some would say he should have been selected to the Pro Bowl and not just been an alternate, but that's another story for another time. So let me give John, I'm going to give a big sorry salute to Danielle Hunter. Now, give me a second. Hey, listen, let me ask y'all a question. I don't know what it is or what has happened to the fact that everybody wants to pile on the Houston Texans. You don't want to give Kamari Lassiter any recognition. You don't want to give Kalen Bullock any recognition. Derek Stingley had to go out and take his recognition. You find Joe Mixon for stuff he didn't even say. Then you come back and you say it's a glorified practice against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a bye week against the Chargers. CJ Stroud has fell off. I don't know what has happened, John. I don't know why the nation has started to come against Houston as far as sports in the NFL is concerned. I don't know what the Houston Texans has done to the rest of the media, but let me tell you something. We say Houston versus everybody for a reason. And the Houston Texans will do nothing but bounce back because their backs have been driven against the wall and nobody's giving them any type of credit or any type of recognition. Barely, John. There's barely. You look at the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, the refs don't even give them any type of respect. And they played the Kansas City Chiefs twice and they got cheated twice. So let me say this. You've awakened a monster. When this Houston Texans team comes back next season, y'all not going to want to see them. You don't want to see CJ Stroud. You don't want to see Nico Collins. You don't want to see Derek Stingley. These two rookies that will be second-year players, you don't want to see Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, a motivated Will Anderson Jr., another motivated Danielle Hunter, and by far one of the people who was disrespected the most this entire season is Azeez Al-Shaair. Watch what he does when he comes back. I'm sorry, Jim.
No, I'm okay with that. I think Sarr said all of that and put black Air Force Ones on. I think it just called out to your feet and they just magically appeared. But thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans Podcast. He was standing on business with all black forces on. I'm John Hickman. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. And also make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans Podcast as well. Also feel like it's disrespectful. We're not seeing Derek Stingley in Defensive Player of the Year awards either.
You can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end. John, real quickly before we leave, can I get your predictions? Commanders, Eagles.
Eagles.
Commanders. Chiefs, Bills.
Man, I'm going with the Bills on this one.
Chiefs.
Whew.
They're playing in Kansas City. I just watched them cheat twice. We just talked about that.
We just talked about it, but it's the reason why I don't want to see the Chiefs win 3 in a row. Thank y'all for watching today's episode. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.